Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when these words drift into your awareness, my dear friends. We gather once again, not in body, but in that shared space where consciousness dances with the ineffable. And today I want to muse, to ponder, to perhaps stir a forgotten chord within you about a rather poignant yet profoundly significant aspect of the human journey. Why the awakened heart often finds itself walking a path seemingly untrodden by others. Why this profound insight, this sudden clarity, can sometimes feel like a gentle yet undeniable solitude. You see, for most of our lives, we are swimming in a vast ocean of unspoken assumptions. We are born into a world where the lines are already drawn, the rules already laid out, and the grand cosmic drama is already cast with us as unwitting players. We learn to distinguish between self and other, between inside and outside, between good and bad, as if these were fundamental laws of the universe, rather than incredibly useful, yet ultimately illusory, distinctions of the human mind. We chase after happiness as if it were a butterfly fluttering just beyond our grasp, believing that if only we could catch it, pin it down, and possess it, then all would be well. We live in a future that never quite arrives, or dwell in a past that is forever gone, perpetually missing the vibrant, pulsating reality of this very moment. And in this chase, in this constant striving, we form alliances, we build communities, we seek affirmation in the shared illusion. It's comforting, isn't it? To know that others are chasing the same butterfly or diligently working on the same cosmic jigsaw puzzle, even if no one seems to have the picture on the box. But then something shifts. A crack appears in the carefully constructed edifice of your understanding. Perhaps it's a moment of profound beauty, a sunset that dissolves the boundaries between you and the horizon, or the intricate pattern on a fallen leaf that suddenly reveals the entire universe in its veins. Perhaps it's a brush with mortality, a sudden reminder of the ephemeral nature of all things, shaking you awake from the slumber of everyday concerns. Or perhaps it's a slow, insistent whisper from deep within, a voice that asks, "Is this all there is?" And in that moment, or series of moments, you begin to see. You begin to understand that the self you've been so carefully cultivating, so fiercely defending, is not a solid, fixed entity at all, but a dynamic process, a wave in the ocean, inseparable from the ocean itself. You realize that the search for happiness outside of yourself is like a fish searching for water. It's already here, already now, in the very fabric of your being. You apprehend that life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived, a dance to be danced, a song to be sung, even when the notes are discordant. This dawning, this awakening, is not a matter of acquiring new information, but of unlearning old patterns. It is not about adding something to yourself, but about stripping away the layers of misconception and conditioning that have obscured the luminous core of your being. And as these layers fall away, as the scales drop from your eyes, you suddenly find yourself looking at the world, and indeed at yourself, with an entirely new gaze. And this is where the solitude begins, not as a punishment, but as an inevitable consequence of seeing things as they are. For the vast majority of humanity is still deeply immersed in the dream. They are still chasing the butterfly, still identifying with their roles, their thoughts, their feelings, as if these were the sum total of their existence. And when you try to articulate this newfound vision, this profound simplicity, to someone who is still caught in the intricate web of conventional reality, it can be a rather difficult affair. It's like trying to explain the taste of honey to someone who has only ever known the taste of salt. The words fall short. The concepts don't quite land. And often, you are met with blank stares, polite nods, or perhaps even a touch of bewilderment or suspicion. They might say, "But if you're not striving, if you're not worrying, if you're not planning for the future, what are you doing?" And you realize with a gentle smile that your doing has transformed into being. Your effort has become effortless, your quest has dissolved into discovery. You are no longer trying to get somewhere, but simply are here. And this radical acceptance, this profound peace, can be deeply unsettling to those who are still caught in the whirlwind of becoming. They might mistake your peace for apathy, your acceptance for resignation, or your freedom from dogma for a lack of direction. And so you find yourself walking alone, not because you have chosen to isolate yourself, but because the very nature of your perception has shifted, placing you in a different dimension of understanding. It's not a separation in space, but a divergence in perspective. And this, my friends, is not a cause for lament, but for quiet celebration. For to walk alone in this sense is not to be lonely, but to be free. Free from the endless compulsion to conform, to explain, to justify. To simply be the vibrant, ever-changing expression of the universe that you are. It's a freedom that can initially feel disorienting, like a fish suddenly realizing it can breathe air, yet finding itself on land with no one else around. The familiar schools of thought, the comfortable currents of shared illusion, are no longer home. You've outgrown them, not in a superior sense, but simply in a different direction. Consider the metaphor of a dream. Most people are deeply immersed in the dream, believing its characters, its dramas, its triumphs and tragedies to be utterly real and binding. They are laughing, crying, striving, fearing within the dream's intricate tapestry. Then you, the awakened heart, suddenly realize it's a dream. The characters are aspects of your own mind, the dramas are fluid and impermanent, and the laws governing this dream are entirely of your own making, or at least of the dream's making, which is inseparable from your own consciousness. You haven't left the dream, you're still in it. But your relationship to it has fundamentally altered. You can participate, you can engage, you can even enjoy the spectacle, but you no longer take it quite so seriously. The stakes, which once seemed impossibly high, now appear rather playful. Now imagine trying to explain to someone still deeply entangled in the dream's narrative that it's all just a dream. Wake up. You might exclaim, none of this is real in the way you think it is. They might look at you with alarm, perhaps pity, or even outright hostility. What do you mean it's not real? I just lost my fortune. My love has left me. The dragon is about to devour the village. They are genuinely suffering, genuinely striving, genuinely celebrating within their reality. And your words, though born of insight, might sound like madness, like a dangerous detachment, or even a cruel dismissal of their very real experience within the dream. So, the awakened heart learns a certain kind of patience, a certain kind of gentle resignation to this perceptual divergence. You learn that not everyone is ready for the unraveling of the dream. Indeed, many are not even looking for it. They are perfectly content, or at least accustomed, to the dream's narrative, however turbulent it may be. And to force an awakening, to shout the truth from the rooftops, is often counterproductive. It creates resistance, not resonance. This understanding leads to a profound shift in how one relates to others. The need to convince, to convert, to enlighten slowly dissolves. Instead, there's a quiet acceptance of where others are on their own journey. You see their struggles, their passions, their beliefs, not as something fundamentally wrong that needs to be fixed, but as integral parts of their unfolding experience. You realize that everyone is playing their part in the grand cosmic dance, and that your own awakening is simply your particular dance, not a universal prescription. This doesn't mean indifference. Far from it. An awakened heart is often overflowing with compassion, with a deep understanding of the suffering that arises from identification with the illusory self. But it's a compassion that doesn't seek to change the other, but rather to be fully present with them, to offer a space of acceptance, and perhaps by the very radiance of your own being, to subtly invite a different possibility without words. The solitude, then, is not a lack of connection, but a shift in the nature of connection. The frantic seeking of external validation, of belonging to a tribe that thinks exactly as you do, begins to wane. Because the deepest belonging is now found within. The universe itself becomes your companion, your constant interlocutor. The trees whisper secrets, the stars hum ancient melodies, and the very air you breathe feels like a sacred communion. You realize you are not merely in the universe, you are the universe, experiencing itself from this particular vantage point. And how could one ever be truly alone when one is intrinsically interwoven with the totality of existence? This walking alone is therefore not an absence, but a fullness. It is a liberation from the clamor of external expectations and the relentless pressure to conform. It allows for a deeper, more authentic engagement with life, an engagement that isn't dictated by the dictates of the crowd, but by the spontaneous arising of your own true nature. And paradoxically, it is often from this space of genuine solitude, of inner rootedness, that the most profound and authentic connections with others can eventually emerge. Not connections based on shared illusions, but on a mutual recognition of the divine spark that animates all beings. It's a connection of souls, not merely of social roles. It's a strange irony, isn't it? That in discovering your indivisibility from all things, you might first experience a profound sense of separateness from those who are still caught in the illusion of separation. But this too is part of the dance, part of the unfolding. And it is in this very aloneness that the true strength, the true wisdom, and the true love of the awakened heart finds its deepest expression. For what is love, after all, but the recognition of oneself in the other, even when that other is still lost in their own dream? It is the quiet understanding that beneath all the surface differences, there is only the one seamless, glorious fabric of being. And you, my dear friend, are a thread in that tapestry, intricately woven, yet simultaneously encompassing the whole. This realization, this profound sense of non-duality, is often what sets the awakened heart apart. For the conventional world thrives on distinctions, on the sharp edges that define one thing as separate from another. We categorize, we label, we judge, not out of malice necessarily, but out of a deeply ingrained habit of the intellect that seeks to make sense of an overwhelmingly complex world by breaking it down into manageable pieces. And this is useful, certainly, for navigating the practicalities of daily life, for knowing the difference between a teacup and a tiger, for instance. But the awakened heart perceives the underlying unity, the fundamental isness that binds the teacup and the tiger, the joy and the sorrow, the self and the other, into a single indivisible happening. It's like seeing the wave not just as a distinct entity, but as an activity of the ocean. The wave is the ocean, just as you are the universe. And when you see this, when you truly feel this, the conventional narratives of struggle, of gain and loss, of being a separate ego fighting for survival against a hostile world, begin to dissolve. They don't vanish entirely from the landscape of experience, but their grip on your consciousness loosens. This is precisely where the friction with the collective often arises. Imagine a symphony orchestra, each musician diligently playing their part, reading their sheet music, following the conductor's baton. And suddenly one musician puts down their instrument, closes their eyes, and simply hears the entire symphony, not as individual notes played by individual instruments, but as a single indivisible sound, a cosmic vibration that encompasses all and yet transcends all. They've moved beyond the individual score to the essence of the music itself. When they try to explain this to the other musicians, still focused on their precise timings and individual notes, the message might be lost. But what about the tempo? What about the dynamics? You're not even looking at the conductor, they might exclaim. And the awakened musician can only smile, for they are experiencing the conductor as the very source of the music, and the music as the very fabric of their being. This doesn't mean becoming aloof or withdrawing from the world, quite the contrary. The awakened heart often engages with the world with a newfound zest, a deeper appreciation for its intricate dance. But the motivation for engagement changes. It's no longer driven by fear, by the need for approval, by the relentless pursuit of external goals as a means to some imagined future happiness. Instead, it springs from a place of spontaneous play, of creative expression, of simply participating in the grand unfolding of life with an open heart and an unburdened spirit. And this absence of conventional motivation can be perplexing to others. Why work so diligently if you're not striving for a promotion? Why cultivate relationships if you're not seeking security? Why pursue knowledge if you're not trying to prove something? The answers for the awakened heart lie in the sheer joy of the activity itself, in the intrinsic value of being alive and participating, rather than in any extrinsic reward. It's the difference between dancing to win a competition and dancing simply for the sheer ecstatic joy of movement. The former is burdened by expectation, the latter is pure liberation. This is a subtle yet profound distinction that most of society is not yet equipped to understand or embrace. Our entire societal structure, our economic systems, our educational institutions, our very notions of success and failure are built upon the premise of striving, of accumulation, of constant improvement towards a future ideal. To simply be, to simply flow, to find contentment in the present moment without needing it to be other than it is, can seem like a radical act of rebellion, or perhaps even a form of laziness or irresponsibility. So, the solitude of the awakened heart is not a chosen isolation from people, but a natural consequence of diverging from the collective narrative of seeking. You are no longer seeking what everyone else is seeking, because you have realized that what you sought was never truly lost, only obscured by your own relentless searching. The treasure, it turns out, was always within, always here, always now. And once that realization dawns, the external chase loses its urgency, its magnetic pull. This can be a challenging phase, my friends. There can be moments of genuine loneliness, not in the sense of being physically alone, but in the sense of feeling misunderstood, of speaking a language that others do not yet comprehend. Old friendships might subtly shift as the common ground of shared illusion begins to erode. New connections, deeper and more resonant, may take time to emerge. But this interim period, this walking alone atam, is not an ending but a passage. It is the crucible in which your authenticity is forged, where your inner compass becomes irrevocably aligned with the true north of your being. It is in this space of apparent emptiness that a profound fullness is discovered. For when you are no longer defined by your external relationships, by your social roles, by the expectations of others, you finally have the space to discover who you truly are, unburdened and unadorned. And that, my dear friends, is a discovery beyond price. It is the beginning of a life lived not from reaction, but from a wellspring of inner peace and spontaneous joy, and from that wellspring, a different kind of connection eventually flows, a connection rooted in mutual freedom rather than mutual dependence. A connection rooted in mutual freedom rather than mutual dependence, which is a connection of an entirely different order, you see. It's a liberation from the subtle, often unconscious, contracts we make with others, where we exchange bits of ourselves for validation, for security, for a sense of belonging. The awakened heart no longer needs to make such exchanges because its sense of worth, its security, and its belonging are no longer derived from external sources, but from the unshakable ground of its own being. This doesn't make one impervious to human relationship, quite the opposite. When you no longer need another person to complete you, to make you happy, or to give your life meaning, you are finally free to love them for who they are. Without agenda, without expectation, without the heavy burden of your own unfulfilled desires projected onto them. This is true compassion, true empathy, a love that simply is, rather than a love that grasps and demands. And this kind of love, precisely because it is so free, so unburdened, is often the most potent and transformative. Think of it like this. For most of us, relationships are a bit like two hungry people trying to feed each other, each hoping the other has a larger loaf of bread than they do. The awakened heart realizes it is the loaf of bread, inexhaustible and abundant. And from that abundance, it can offer nourishment without depletion, without resentment, without the hidden ledger of give and take that often plagues our interactions. This can be profoundly disarming to others who are accustomed to the push and pull of expectation. They might not quite know how to react to someone who offers love without strings, presence without judgment, and acceptance without a need for reciprocation. And here, once again, the aloneness manifests. It's not that you're literally without friends or lovers, but that the quality of those relationships shifts. Many people find the unconditional nature of awakened love unsettling. They are more comfortable with the familiar dance of mutual need, even if it's fraught with drama and dissatisfaction. To be loved without being needed can feel like a strange, unfamiliar landscape. They might withdraw, mistaking your freedom for indifference, or your non-attachment for coldness. They might even try to pull you back into the old patterns, attempting to provoke a reaction, to elicit a familiar sign of egoic entanglement. But the awakened heart understands that this, too, is part of the dance. It understands that everyone is operating from their current level of awareness, and that their reactions are simply reflections of their own inner landscape. There's no judgment, no anger, no regret, just a quiet, compassionate observation. And this very lack of reaction, this unshakable peace in the face of external turbulence, is itself a powerful, albeit silent, teaching. It demonstrates that there is another way to be, another way to engage with the world that is not governed by the endless cycle of desire and aversion. This doesn't mean the awakened heart is immune to pain or sorrow. Far from it. The capacity for joy and sorrow often deepens, for the boundaries that once shielded the ego from the full spectrum of experience have dissolved. But the relationship to pain and sorrow transforms. There's no longer the frantic resistance, the desperate attempt to escape or suppress. Instead, there's an open embrace, an understanding that these experiences too are part of the vast, intricate symphony of life. They are felt fully, acknowledged without judgment, and then allowed to pass like clouds drifting across the sky. The suffering arises not from the pain itself, but from the resistance to it, from the story we tell ourselves about the pain. And when that story dissolves, the pain remains, but the suffering often dissipates. So, the solitude is not a state of emotional numbness, but a state of profound emotional honesty and courage. It takes courage to stand outside the collective narrative, to feel the full spectrum of life without the buffers and distractions that society offers. It takes courage to face the vastness of existence, both its light and its shadow, without the comforting illusions of control and predictability. And it is in this courageous vulnerability that an immense inner strength is forged. This inner strength is what allows the awakened heart to navigate the world with grace and fluidity, to respond to challenges not from a place of fear or reaction, but from a deep wellspring of wisdom and intuition. The incessant internal dialogue, the nagging self-doubt, the endless second-guessing that often paralyzes the unawakened mind begins to quiet. There's a newfound trust in the natural intelligence of the universe, an understanding that life itself is inherently trustworthy and that you are an integral part of its intelligent unfolding. And so you walk, perhaps with fewer companions on the immediate path, but with a profound and intimate connection to the entire cosmos. The stars become your silent confidantes, the wind whispers ancient truths, and the rhythm of your own breath becomes a sacred mantra. You are not alone, for you are one with all that is. The walking alone is simply the dissolution of the illusion of separation, a return to your true nature as an inseparable expression of the vast, boundless, and utterly interconnected universe. It is a glorious paradox, isn't it? To find absolute unity in what appears, at first glance, to be profound solitude. Profound solitude. It is a glorious paradox indeed, this journey of the awakened heart. A paradox that the intellect grapples with, for it operates by definition and distinction, while the awakened heart experiences a reality beyond definition, a seamless unity that transcends all categories. And in this transcendence, the conventional meanings of words like alone or together begin to dissolve, revealing a deeper truth. The final wisdom in this journey is not about achieving some perfected state or reaching a destination where all challenges cease. Oh no, my friends, that would be another illusion. Life, in its infinite creativity, will continue to present its kaleidoscopic array of experiences. There will still be moments of confusion, of sadness, of doubt, for these are inherent to the human condition, part of the rich tapestry of being alive. But the awakened heart experiences these not as fundamental threats to its existence, but as transient phenomena, like clouds passing across the vast blue sky of awareness. They come, they go, and the sky remains, ever pure, ever clear, ever spacious. This understanding brings a profound sense of lightness, a freedom from the heavy burden of constant self-improvement or the desperate clinging to fleeting pleasures. You realize that you are already whole, already complete, already perfect in your imperfect, ever-changing being. There is nothing to fix, nothing to add, nothing to subtract, only to be. And in this radical acceptance, a deep and abiding peace settles into your core. This peace, this unshakable stillness, is the ultimate companion on the path of apparent solitude. It is a peace that does not depend on external circumstances, on the presence or absence of others, or on the fulfillment of any particular desire. It is simply the natural state of being when the mind is no longer agitated by the incessant chatter of egoic striving. It is the peace of knowing that you are, in essence, the very ground of existence, the source from which all phenomena arise and into which all phenomena dissolve. So, if you find yourself walking this path, my dear friends, if you feel the gentle pull of solitude as your perception shifts, do not despair. Do not mistake this inner spaciousness for emptiness or this quiet divergence for abandonment. Instead, embrace it as an invitation, a sacred opportunity to delve deeper into the mystery of your own being. Let the world be as it is, let others be as they are, and let yourself simply be. For in this being, in this gentle acceptance, you will discover that you are never truly alone. The entire universe is your companion, breathing with you, vibrating with you, unfolding its infinite wonders through you. The trees stand in silent communion, the mountains echo ancient wisdom, and the very air you breathe carries the boundless love of existence itself. You are interwoven with the fabric of reality, a unique and irreplaceable expression of the cosmic dance. The awakened heart walks alone, yes, in the sense that it no longer seeks external validation or adheres blindly to the dictates of the crowd. But it walks in profound unity, deeply connected to the source of all life, in a dance of effortless grace and spontaneous joy. It is a journey not to somewhere, but from somewhere, from the illusion of separation, back into the glorious interconnected reality of being. And that, my friends, is a journey worth taking, a journey that reveals the universe as your true home and yourself as its most magnificent expression.